So UFC Vegas 27. So I have to say the main card, at least three of the fights that caught my attention, they were quite entertaining fights, especially the main one, Cody Garbrandt versus ROBFONT. So yeah, starting off with the main event between Cody Garbrandt versus ROBFONT, it was entertaining. At least it was at the beginning. When I say it was entertaining from the beginning, both guys were really their stand up was really good. It seems to be a lot of to and fro going on there, with the strikes and the punches, the kicks. Initially I thought that this fight would have been in the bag for someone like Cody Garbrandt, because based on his last fight, he moves really fast, really agile, always moving, always pacing backwards and forwards, always never standing still in one place, always bouncing, hopping from foot to foot. So and I saw that in the fight. I saw that in Cody Garbrandt in the fight. So he was fast and agile. His movement, especially in the first round. But to me, I was, both guys, for me anyway, as a novice mixed martial arts fan, both guys did seem to be giving it their all in the first round. Was soon, it didn't take long for Font closed in and took Cody down in a takedown. And then by the second round, I think ROBFONT really started to take things up a notch, really started to push the pace, and really started putting pressure on Cody, started closing in and cornering him on one side of the octagon. And of course, attacking him on the offensive, of course. And then by the third round, both guys were really dishing out really heavy shots. And it was at this point that, moving on to the fourth round, at this point that I think this is where one of the guys started bleeding, Cody Garbrandt, and his face gradually became bloodier and bloodier, became a mess. And you can see, that was kind of slightly affecting his ability to perform. Not too bad. I mean, he's still moving quickly and moving with such agility, and still moving well from foot to foot. And by the fifth round, though, still the guy was Cody was still pushing through, still fighting. But by this point, he did seem a bit more evasive, and at one point, he did try to execute a spinning elbow, what looks like, I'm assuming, a spinning elbow. But the other guy, ROBFONT, seems a bit wise to that and just ducks and then pushed. Well, to say push, but he got Cody Garbrandt into a takedown just immediately. And from there, I think, ROBFONT won via unanimous decision. Unfortunately, this is via and I hate doing this, via the highlights. UFC Fight Pass wasn't. They don't update their database as soon as the fights happen. Usually they do that in about 2 or 3 days, so that's a real pain in the ass. But this fight, I have to say, overall it was entertaining. It was for me, and I have to say the Cody Garbrandt just didn't look good after this fight. His face looked completely unrecognizable, as on one side of his face, especially the area around his mouth, around his upper lip, looks completely swollen, completely swollen, completely unrecognizable, totally unrecognizable. It looks like you're talking to a completely new person there. Just looked awful, and he did sound quite emotional in the just in the video he posted on his Instagram or his social media, just thanking fans for all the love and support. And even a lot of the mixed martial arts community, they came out and said more the same thing. Congratulations to ROBFONT on winning the fight, but also credit to Cody Garbrandt for giving his all and for doing his best in the fight as well, because both guys performed well, but ROBFONT was the better fighter. So moving on to the next fight between Carla Esparza and Yan Xiaonan, the Chinese mixed martial, the female Chinese mixed martial arts fighter. Now this fight was for Carla Esparza. I mean, she won, but I have to say how she performed in the fight was just testament, and how well she performed in the fight was just testimony to her solid background in wrestling. Now at the beginning of the fight, I think Carla seized the opportunity to at least shows how good of a wrestler she is by Yan just making that bit of a mistake and this was kind of confirmed in the commentary by what's his name, Marco Bisping. Just as the bell sounded to start sounded to signify the beginning of the first round, Yan more or less kind of rushed in and was just too aggressive, too quickly, too soon, and Carla just seized the opportunity to just push her opponent into a takedown, and for the first round just capped her there for more or less the whole of the more or less what felt like the whole of the first round. And the same thing happened again in the second round. In the first round, she did some damage to her opponent, and the second round, she, before you knew it, she already, it was back to square one again for, at least it was for Yan. And this time around, Carla was doing some serious damage to that girl's face, elbows, strikes, and was doing a really good job of just keeping her on the ground for the length of time that she did. So much so that while she was dishing out all those attacks, whilst she was still keeping her opponent on the ground, who was Yan didn't really look good in that fight. So the referee did have to come in and just call a stoppage to the fight. Carla won via a TKO, and Yan took some serious damage. Her face was a bloody mess. And yeah, it's a testament to Carla's wrestling skills. She's got a really solid background in wrestling. So she's on a 5-win winning streak now at the moment. So now she's calling for a title shot from Dana. I think, if I am correct from what I saw in the content on the YouTube videos that I've seen, MMA News, Full Mount MMA, you'll know if you're watching, if you're a mixed martial arts fan like myself, a fight fan, the big YouTube channels are keeping a close eye on what happens in the mixed martial arts community, in the combat sporting world community. She's now calling for a title fight, and looking at her record, she's won 5 of her past fights. Let's cross check that again. What's her ranking at the moment? So yeah, this was as of January 19th, 2021. She's number 4 in the UFC women's strawweight. So I'm sure by now, yeah, she will be. Her ranking would have changed probably to like number 3, number 2. Also, but I think she's now near enough to the top spot to actually call for a title shot fight. So I think more or less Dana, that is going to be in the works. Dana hasn't said anything to kind of just say that he doesn't see that happening, or I believe it is going to happen. I mean, she's won for nearly all of her 5 of her past fights. So yeah, there's no way that can't happen. So what else can I say to that? No, so she's calling for a title shot. She's calling for a title fight. Yeah, that's going to be. I'm sure that's going to be happening soon. So yeah, I'm sure that's going to be happening soon. Probably the next time she fights, she will be fighting in the main event. And yeah, just another quick note on her wrestling. It was actually through wrestling that's how she actually made her way into mixed martial arts. So, she's got that solid background in wrestling. So, her ground game is going to be on point. So the last fight that caught my attention was going to be between the Australian and the American, or the Australian and the American, Justin Tafa versus Jared Vandeira. So it's a heavyweight fight for the heavyweight division. Both guys seem to have good stand up as the fight started. Vandeira obviously, whilst he had his opponent's head bent down, just gave a nice knee. By the second round, I think Vandeira started becoming much more offensive, putting pressure onto Tafa, backing him to a corner, and really doing some serious damage with some elbows and some shots. and it's quite surprising actually, because Vandeira actually ended up looking far more bloodier than his opponent did, whereby it was from what I could see in that particular point in the fight, Tafa actually looks like was taking more of the beating, more of the damage there. So by the third round, both guys did seem significantly hurt, significantly bloody, and they were a mess, but they were still giving it their all. And wow, shit, my throat. Vandeira did win by unanimous decision. So yeah, that was. I mean, to be honest, the only reason why I watched this fight is because Justin Tafa is his name rings a bell from a last fight that I saw him fighting in one of the previous UFC events. But to be honest, the heavyweight fights for me, I think because they're bigger guys, they're carrying much more weight. They're obviously not going to be moving fast and just in a way that makes the fight entertaining. Nothing against them, but for me personally, it's this fight, even though it did catch my attention because of one of the fighters' names. After seeing it, I kind of like, no, it wasn't really that entertaining. That's really all I'm going to say. So, moving on to news. Yeah, okay, so there was one particular point that was brought up by Kamaru Usman when he was being interviewed, I think, by the ESPN. What was his name? Is it Okamoto or something? I can't remember the journalist's name, but I think it was by ESPN. And Usman made the point that, he said that Conor McGregor is no longer basically one of those top level fighters. That this is one of those fighters that there's something special about them. Whenever they fight, there's that wow factor about them that's no longer there. They may have done that in the past to help them at least bring them to the level where they are now in the sport, in the industry, not in the industry, but in the organization they're fighting, which is the biggest fight promotion in the world, on the planet, the UFC. But is Conor McGregor the same Conor McGregor that he was before? That Conor McGregor that people tuned in and paid the money, that paid the pay-per-views to tune in and watch this guy fight wherever they were in the world? Is he still that same guy, or is he now just a regular mixed martial arts fighter like most of the other people in the UFC and probably in other fighting organizations outside of the UFC? And I think what really prompted him to say that, and probably this will be ringing true for many other people, that in terms of agreement, that they agree with what he said. And for me, because I saw this comment being posted, someone on Instagram, I think it was related to the interview that Kamaru Usman was doing that I'm talking about now, and I actually replied with the comment, well, you're saying that now because he lost like the way he did to Dustin Poirier back at UFC 257, but if he wins in the next fight, well, I'm sure it will change people's minds. Of course, they're also taking into account how he performed in the next fight, how he's going to perform if he wins, and it's just the way he fought was quite dull and was not really that entertaining, then I think many people will kind of agree that the old Conor is no more, and the new Conor is just a regular mixed martial arts fighter with the name. That's it. And I'm kind of on the fence with this one, because I do believe that they usually say that you're only as good as your last fight, and I can see the logic to that. But in this case, Conor McGregor, well, let's see what happens. I mean, when he was fighting Dustin Poirier for the first, well, no, not for the first time, for the second time after UFC 178 back in 2014, I was fighting Dustin Poirier again for the second time in UFC 257. There was the issue that people saw in the fight, whereby it looks like Conor McGregor wasn't doing things, that he wasn't fighting the usual way that he has fought his past fights. I wasn't doing what he usually does that helps him win in a fight. So people are saying in that fight, what people are saying, you could see in that fight, I saw in that fight that he was more concerned with showing how good he was with his excuse me, how good he was with his hands, you know, showing how good of a boxer he is now. And after that fight, there was the video that he posted online whereby it showed him doing some sort of, what can I call it? Is it Muay Thai? So whereby he's kind of just doing some exercise or training up against a wall in his hotel where he was staying in, I think, is it Abu Dhabi or somewhere like that, somewhere sunny. And people were making fun of that video. I mean, I couldn't tell whether it was real or not. But I think when people see those sorts of things, and I was surprised at people's reaction to how, okay, he lost, and he's actually known for winning most of his fights. But I was surprised that this is just one loss out of how many fights. Of course, you can't win them all. But I was quite surprised at people's reaction that he just loses one fight in a long while, and then people automatically think, God, he's not what he used to be, he should retire. Some people are actually saying that, he should retire. And I was thinking, why would you think that? First of all, you can't win every single fight that you can't win every single competition that you're going to be competing in, participating in. So it's quite silly to think that someone should retire if they are still kind of in their prime. He's 32, 33 now. Still, just let's say towards the tail end of their prime. You can't expect them to win every single competition that they're going to be competing in what they in terms of mixed martial arts. So you can't just use that one particular loss to judge them or write them off. So when people said that, when I heard Usman's statement that he made recently, I thought to myself, I'm still on the fence. About this. If he wins the next fight, the third fight with Dustin Poirier, I'm sure people's minds will change completely, and they'll be saying something else. Some people may even be saying that, and this will be so far-fetched and silly, but with some of the crazy things I've seen and heard in this community, some people may say, should Dustin Poirier retire? Then maybe Dustin Poirier just got lucky back at UFC 257. People start saying anything they like. I'm still of a mind. I'm still, when it comes to whether he's a good fighter, whether he's still the same fighter he was all those years ago, with the name, with that wow factor that attracted so many crowds to watch him in the venue, outside the venue, paying the pay-per-views to see him. I'm still on the fence to see whether that is the case. I mean, if he wins the next fight, I'm sure people's opinions will change. You will rarely hear a single negative comment about him, or you rarely hear anything or anyone saying that he should retire. So, for me, without ranting or not getting too technical or sounding like a broken record, let's wait and see what happens. So, right. So, the other point that I want to make, well, of course, it's no news now that Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabia, excuse me. Oh, God, my mouth gets so dry. So, it is nothing new, and it isn't necessarily new news that Joshua Fabia, well, let me start by saying it the other way around. Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabia have indeed cut ties. At least Diego Sanchez has fired Joshua Fabia as his coach, his cornerman, and his manager, his business partner, whatever, his solicitor, representative, PR, whatever. I think he Joshua Fabia was saddled with all those responsibilities responsibilities for Diego Sanchez. So he's been relieved of that post now, and many people are celebrating that. Okay, yes, this is a good thing for Diego Sanchez. There was a statement that Diego Sanchez posted not too long ago, just a few days ago, that sometimes you have to look at yourself, take a long, good, hard look at yourself in the mirror, and to reflect on who you were, and just to remind yourself of who you are. Something like that's what he said. And well, I don't know. Nobody knows exactly what happened. I think Diego Sanchez was stated online that he's yet to make a proper, in-depth, detailed statement about what actually happened between him and Joshua Fabia. So I think the overall conclusion and clarity on that matter is still quite vague for most of us. So all we know is that the two guys have cut ties. As far as you can tell, that's what the people on the outside are being told. So let's wait and see what actually happens. Now, I did actually reach out to Joshua Fabia and ask him to come into my podcast, into my show, to actually give his side of the story with respect to everything that's been happening. So he did actually reply. He replied. I was surprised that he actually did reply. I was actually surprised that he did reply at all. But he did get back to me, and I said, look, I'd like you to come to the show or to get your side of the story. I'm the sort of person I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I've heard both sides before I can come to my own conclusion, before I make up my own mind. So I would like to hear your side of your version of events. Everything online seems to be so biased against you and paints you as the villain in this person, that you're the cause of all of Diego Sanchez's problems. And he at first said, yeah, we can do that. And then he asked me for my viewings, my numbers, my sub counts. I said, well, look, I'm a really small channels and podcasts, really tiny channel and podcast, so I haven't got many views or subs, but still, I would like to hear your side of the story before I can make up my mind. I think it's good for someone to be given up an opportunity to defend themselves and to give their own version, their own testimony about what happened. So he said he'd get back to me, and I reached out again after about 2 or 3 days had passed. Well, about 2 days had passed, and he didn't reply. I just tried one more time, and he said, no, not at this time. So again, I am really trying not to kind of go with the flow, go with the crowds on this one, because I'm assuming that if this is the sort of reaction he's given me, and I'm giving him the opportunity, even though I'm a really small, tiny platform, I've reached out to him to give him the opportunity to come and speak, to come to my show, and it's a sort of public platform anyway, to give him the opportunity to speak out, to give his own version of events, of what happened, to give his own side of the story. He still turned it down. Maybe it's because he knows there's no way that he can look good in this at all. There's nothing he can say, because really the only two people who know what actually really happened are him and Diego Sanchez. You know, that's it. So I'm really trying not to think like everybody else, that he's a scumbag, that he's a cult leader, that he's a Charles Manson. Nothing like that. I'm really trying to still be on the fence about this guy. So because when he didn't reply, I thought, okay, maybe everybody else is right about this guy, that I need to take my head out of my proverbial my rear end, take my head out of the sand, and kind of just wake up to the reality that he is basically what everybody's saying he is. Because for one thing, if he really was a good coach, and if he really is everything that he says he is, about all this energy stuff and his school of self-awareness, if all of those things were good, then why did Diego Sanchez perform the way he did in his last few fights? And look at how Diego Sanchez was released from the UFC. Although there is some rumors going around at the moment that the reason why Diego Sanchez has cut ties and has just split from Joshua Fabia is because he is now in talks with the UFC about doing some sort of project or so. Maybe it could be a fight. It could be that last fight with Donald Cerrone. It could be for something else. But for what I heard, and I really heard about it from one or two sources, it is something to do with the UFC, and I think potentially maybe again, this is what I was hearing, that the UFC would only let Diego Sanchez participate in whatever it was that they had planned. They would only let him participate if he was to basically get rid of Joshua Fabia. And that's happened, we don't know exactly what else Diego Sanchez is involved in. So I think we'll just have to wait and see. But where Joshua Fabia is concerned, I still keep my fingers crossed. If he wants to come on the show, I'll be more than happy to have him on the show and just get some more clarity on what actually happened between him and Diego Sanchez. Because I'm sure many people like to. Some may not care at all, but I'm sure there are going to be some people who may be curious as to the certain things that we saw Joshua Fabia make Diego Sanchez do, all the things that were supposedly meant to, I'm assuming, help Diego Sanchez perform better as a mixed martial arts fighter, or help him to become better as a person overall. But let's wait and see what happens. Wow. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna wrap that up here. I think I've ranted on for long enough, to about 25 to 30 minutes. Yes, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did enjoy this episode, guys, please don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and yes, don't forget to share my videos as well if you really do like them. You can also listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and Google Podcasts. You can also catch me on Instagram. My name is IkeJarko1. On Facebook and Twitter, my name is IkeJarko. Thanks again, guys.